What made Dizzy Dean different from every other pitcher in baseball history? Not the records, though they were spectacular. Not the technique, though it was flawless. It was something you couldn't measure with statistics, something that made crowds roar and teammates smile every time he took the mound. To truly understand who Dizzy Dean was, you need to hear from the people who witnessed him pitch, played alongside him, and even faced him across the diamond. Dizzy Dean was born into a sharecropper family in Arkansas, so poor he only attended school through second grade. No pitching coaches, no formal training facilities, just a kid throwing rocks wrapped in yarn. In 1930, at age 20, Dean made his major league debut on the final day of the season. He threw a complete game, allowing just 3 hits against Pittsburgh. No nervousness, no jitters. 2 years later, Dean led the entire league in strikeouts with 191 and shutouts with 4. But what impressed people most wasn't the numbers. Red Smith, the Pulitzer Prize-winning sports writer, captured it perfectly. As a ball player, Dizzy Dean was a natural phenomenon, like the Grand Canyon or the Great Barrier Reef. Nobody ever taught him baseball, and he never had to learn. He was just doing what came naturally. The New York Times editor described his motion. You were attracted by the graceful rhythm of his pitching motion, the long, majestic sweep of his arm as he let the ball fly. That was what counted when batter after batter swung ineptly at pitches they couldn't even see. Dean didn't learn greatness. He was born with it. Before the 1934 season began, Dizzy Dean made a bold prediction that shocked the baseball world. "Me and Paul will probably win 40 games," he announced to reporters. His brother Paul had never thrown a single pitch in the major leagues. The media laughed. Opponents mocked. Even his own teammates rolled their eyes. Dean didn't care. He kept talking. "Anybody who's ever had the privilege of seeing me play knows that I am the greatest pitcher in the world," he declared during his prime years with the Cardinals. Most players who said things like that got booed out of stadiums. Dean, crowds loved him. Why? Because he backed it up every single time. That season, Dizzy won 30 games. Paul won 19. 49 games, exceeding even Dean's outrageous prediction. Then came the World Series against Detroit, and the Dean brothers dominated again, winning all 4 Cardinals victories to capture the championship. This is what separated Dean from every other loudmouth in sports history. He didn't just talk, he performed, and he never apologized for his confidence. His most famous quote summed it up perfectly: "It ain't bragging if you can do it." When you're leading the league in strikeouts 4 straight years, when you're delivering championships, when you're making impossible predictions come true, that's not arrogance. That's fact. And during the Great Depression, when Americans desperately needed someone to believe in, Dean gave them a hero who always kept his promises. The 1934 World Series pitted Dean's Cardinals against the Detroit Tigers. Before the series started, Dean trash-talked the Tigers relentlessly, telling anyone who'd listen exactly how he'd dominate them. In Game 4, Dean wasn't even pitching. He entered as a pinch runner, trying to break up a double play. He threw himself in front of the throw to first base. The ball struck him square in the head, knocking him unconscious. He was carried off on a stretcher. The next day's headline read, "X-ray of Dean's head reveals nothing." The Cardinals won the series in 7 games, with Dean delivering the final shutout. After it was over, Detroit outfielder Goose Goslin sat down with reporters. Here was a man who'd just lost the championship, whose team had been humiliated by Dean's predictions coming true. What did Goslin say? This Dizzy Dean they're all talking about told the boys what he's going to do to them. But after listening for a while, I kind of liked the kid. There's no real harm in him. That was Dean's magic. Even the people he beat couldn't hate him. His teammate, Pepper Martin, explained why. When old Diz was out there pitching, it was more than just another ballgame. It was a regular 3-ring circus, and everybody was wide awake and enjoying being alive. Dean didn't just win, he entertained. For all his bragging, there was one person Dizzy Dean never claimed to be better than: Satchel Paige. During the 1930s, while baseball remained segregated, Dean regularly barnstormed with Negro League teams. He faced off against Page, the greatest pitcher in the Negro Leagues, 6 times. Page won 4 of those matchups. Dean won 2. And Dean, the man who called himself the greatest pitcher in the world, said something remarkable. "I know who's the best pitcher I ever see, and it's old Satchel Paige, that big, lanky colored boy," Dean told reporters during the height of his own career. "Say, old Diz is pretty fast back in 1933 and 34, and you know my fastball looks like a change of pace. Alongside that little pistol bullet old Satchel shoots up the plate." Read that again. Dean admitted Page's fastball made his own look slow. He went further. "If Satch and I were pitching on the same team, we would clinch the pennant by July 4th and go fishing until World Series time." This was the 1930s, the Jim Crow era. A white superstar publicly declaring a black pitcher superior? This was almost unheard of. Dean wasn't being politically correct. He didn't care about social movements. He just respected greatness when he saw it. Decades later, sports writer Joe Posnanski wrote, "Dizzy Dean would say that Page's fastball made his own look like a changeup." Think about what that means. This quote came from the same man who bragged constantly, who predicted victories, who never backed down from anyone. The phrase, "my fastball looks like a change of pace," came from someone who genuinely believed he was the best. That's the highest form of respect. Dean never publicly advocated for baseball integration. He wasn't a social activist, but his actions spoke louder than words. He barnstormed with black players, paid them fairly, treated them as equals. In that era, simply respecting black athletes as peers was progressive. This moment reveals Dean's true character: confident but not blind, proud but not prejudiced. Frankie Frisch, the Cardinals' player-manager, had a problem. Dizzy Dean broke team rules, showed up late, caused chaos wherever he went. He was exhausting to manage. Branch Rickey, the team's general manager, felt the same frustration. After spending 4 hours in a meeting with Dean, the highly educated Rickey, who held a law degree and graduated in the top 10% of his class, asked himself in bewilderment, "Tell me why I spent 4 mortal hours today conversing with a person named Dizzy Dean." In August of 1934, Dean and his brother Paul skipped an exhibition game. Frisch fined them both. The Dean brothers exploded, tearing up their uniforms in a rage. They refused to play for a week. The Cardinals won 7 of 8 games without them, proving the team could win regular games just fine. But when September arrived and the pennant race tightened, reality hit. They absolutely needed Dean. Before the World Series, Dean made his boldest prediction yet. Who won the pennant? Me and Paul. Who's going to win the series? Me and Paul. Burley Grimes, watching Dean before his debut years earlier, noticed something special. Dizzy and me were sitting side by side on the bench. He was as unconcerned as if he was tossing rocks at a mud turtle in the Merrimack River. That's who Dean was. Impossible to control, impossible to replace. Early September 1934, the Cardinals trailed the Giants by 7 games. The season looked over. Then Dean went on the most dominant pitching stretch in baseball history. He threw 5 complete games in the final 9 days of September. 5 complete games. 9 days. On September 21st, the Cardinals faced Brooklyn in a doubleheader. Dizzy pitched the first game, throwing no-hit baseball through 8 innings before settling for a 3-hit shutout. Paul Dean then threw an actual no-hitter in the second game. In the locker room afterward, Dizzy turned to his brother with a grin. "Gee, Paul, if I'd 'a known you was gonna throw a no-hitter, I'd 'a throwed one too." But Dean wasn't done. September 30th, the final day of the season. The Giants led by half a game. Both teams played their final games simultaneously. The Cardinals had to win or face a potential playoff. Frankie Frisch called on Dean with just 1 day of rest. Sportsman's Park packed in 37,402 fans, the largest crowd since 1931. The scoreboard showed the Giants jumping ahead 4-0 against Brooklyn in the first inning. The pressure was enormous. Dean shut out Cincinnati 9-0, clinching his 30th win and the pennant. After the game, a young boy ran onto the field and placed a 4-pound block of ice on the pitcher's mound. Dizzy told me this morning to put it there after the game. the boy explained, said it would be burning up if I didn't. Associated Press writer Paul Mickelson captured the moment perfectly. If a showman had arranged it, he couldn't have staged a more dramatic finish than that of today. 1937 All-Star Game. Earl Averill hit a line drive that struck Dean's left big toe. Dean looked down at his foot and delivered one of his classic lines, "Fractured. Hell, the damn thing's broken." Doctors told him to rest and let it heal properly. Dean refused. He tried to pitch too soon, compensating for the injured toe by altering his pitching motion. The changed mechanics destroyed his arm permanently. From 1937 to 41, Dean was a shadow of himself. At age 27, his career was essentially over. If healthy, Dean could have pitched another 10 years. He won 30 games at age 24. With that trajectory, he might have reached 300 career wins. Instead, he finished with 150. Yet even with just 150 wins, he became a first-ballot Hall of Famer in 1953. That's the testament to his brilliance. 5 dominant years were enough to secure immortality. Most pitchers need 15 years to reach the Hall of Fame. Dean needed 5. His peak was that spectacular. 150 career wins. That's typically not enough for the Hall of Fame. The threshold usually sits around 250 to 300 wins. Dean was inducted in 1953, just 6 years after his final appearance. First ballot, 79.2% of vote. Compare that to other pitchers. Phil Niekro won 318 games but waited 5 ballots. Bert Blyleven won 287 games but waited 14 ballots. Dean won 150 and sailed through immediately. Why? Baseball historian Bill James explained it perfectly. Dizzy Dean, as most of you know, was a figure of myth and legend, the subject of countless anecdotes still told today. A movie was made about him. Books are still written about him regularly, although he is now long dead. With just 150 wins, he rushed headlong into the Hall of Fame. After retiring, Dean became a famous broadcaster from the 1940s through 65, bringing baseball to millions on CBS and NBC's Game of the Week. His grammar was atrocious. He said slud instead of slid, throwed instead of threw. When teachers complained about his influence on children, Dean responded, "Let the teachers teach English, and I will teach baseball." Los Angeles Times columnist Jim Murray summed up Dean's legacy after his death in 1974. Dizzy Dean. It's impossible to say without a smile, but then who wants to try? 90 years after he threw his last pitch, people still smile at the mention of his name. Not because of his ERA or strikeouts, but because of joy. Pure, infectious joy. Dizzy Dean remains the last National League pitcher to win 30 games in a single season. That was over 90 years ago. In modern baseball, with pitch counts and 5-man rotations, that record will never be broken. But Dean's true legacy isn't about records. He proved that personality and talent can coexist. That confidence isn't arrogance when you deliver. That baseball is entertainment, not just competition. In today's era of analytics and serious approaches to the game, Dean reminds us why millions fell in love with baseball in the first place. It's supposed to be fun. Red Smith called him a natural phenomenon, like the Grand Canyon, impossible to replicate. 90 years later, that's still true. There will never be another Dizzy Dean. Pepper Martin said it best. When Diz was pitching, everybody was wide awake and enjoying being alive. During America's darkest economic times, that was the greatest gift an athlete could give. Not championships or records, but joy. The ability to make people forget their troubles and simply smile. That's immortality.